Those Yukon Huskies may not be afraid of the dark, but they should fear the night. And does this season prove once and for all that Cal's way is the right way? That's coming up right now in the Red and Blue Review, presented by the Winton Law Group and the Kia Store. The Red and Blue Review is presented by the Winton Law Group and by the Kia Store and by the Ford Store, the Bachman Auto Group, Home Run Burgers and Fries, Sam Swope, and by SWAT Team Pest Control.
DeAndre, what was your reaction to Coach kissing you there?
He didn't kiss me back, I can tell you that.
Well, if Kentucky wins the national championship this weekend, everybody's going to be kissing everybody, including, no, not these two guys. We're not going to go that far. Welcome to the Red and Blue Review, only the second Final Four edition of the Red and Blue in our history. Darrell, we've been doing this 7 years. We did one for Louisville a couple of years ago, but the Cats heading back to the Final Four for the first time in 13 years. Darrell Bird of the Cats Paws, give me your take on what's happening on Planet Blue.
Who'd have thunk it? That's the only thing I can say. Nobody could see this coming. You remember we talked early in the season we were doing this show with Enes Kanter, a Final Four team potentially. Without him, get to the Sweet 16 and hope for the best. Who expects the best to be knocking off Ohio State and North Carolina? To me, they've already won a Final Four just to get to the Final Four.
Well, everyone is proud of Kentucky making it to the Final Four. Well, maybe not everyone, but I think Howie is even proud of Kentucky. Aren't you, Howie?
You know, I'm done. I'm done doubting this team. This has been the worst tournament ever for Louisville fans, but I'm done doubting this team. I think Kentucky's going to win it all. That's hard to say.
Somebody call the EMTs. In the meantime, let's jump into the lightning round. Who's hot at the University of Kentucky? This is a layup. It's that entire Big Blue basketball team, as Darrell just said. No one really thought Kentucky would do this, even as late as the Ohio State game, even as late as that North Carolina game. But the Cats are back in the Final Four for the first time since they went to another city in Texas, San Antonio, and lassoed the '98 national title.
I'm still floating right now, you know, cloud nine. And I said about last game, going to the Elite Eight again. And now we've made one step further than last year's team. You know, we're back in the Final Four where a lot of people think Kentucky should be. And, you know, a lot of people doubted us. And, you know, we proved a lot of people wrong. And we're on cloud nine. I think everybody right now is floating right now.
It's a lot. I mean, just me being a freshman and us always hearing we're too young to do this. We don't have enough experience to win the next game. The next game is just feels good to prove everybody wrong.
My whole life, really. I mean, and especially with this program, especially growing up in Kentucky, it means a lot to me.
It's just amazing. It's just great. I mean, you live for moments like this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think that's probably the enjoyment of it. Most years when Kentucky's pointed toward a Final Four, there's so much pressure because everybody expects them to be there, and you can't really completely enjoy the moment because they either get there or it's a failure, kind of like last year's team. This year, nobody saw it coming, and they just got all the fans just got caught up in this ride very, very late in the season. They've just been riding the crest ever since, and that's what makes this one enjoyable. I mean, they were an underdog in both games in Newark, which never happens for Kentucky, so that made it even more enjoyable.
Hey, Darrell, let me ask you before we jump over to Howie's what's hot item. Is this Kentucky team playing without pressure?
No, I don't think you ever play without pressure at Kentucky, but definitely it was such a unique role to be an underdog in both of those games that they approached it differently. Cal never gets the chance to walk in and say they're all doubting you, and the players were loving all these CBS and ESPN experts who, like, one by one said, nope, UK's not going to win this one, especially Harrelson, because Harrelson was always say, well, Harrelson can't handle Sullinger, he can't handle Zeller, so this is probably where it ends for them, and they were just eating that up.
Who's hot at the University of Louisville? A slugger from Owensboro, Howie.
You got it. Stuart Imes. The talk this year was that nobody's going to hit home runs because the bats are too soft. They don't have the same pop. Well, he's had 4 home runs in 4 games, and Stuart is knocking it out of the park. I think Louisville baseball is starting to get their bats waking up.
Who's not hot at the University of Kentucky. If you can believe this, heading into the Final Four for the first time in 13 years, somebody comes up with a great idea, Darrell, to put 42 people on a committee to study whether or not they want to renovate Rupp or replace it.
Were these people, the people in government, were you not watching the 2010 elections? We don't want big government. We don't want, get out of the way and let people get it done. 42 people to examine whether you can expand and renovate Rupp or you have to build a new arena. 42 people, they won't get past the first day. They won't even be able to agree on an agenda. Way too many people. Just get a few people involved that know what they're doing and say yes or no.
Well, here's a fear for you. The last time I remember a big group of athletic-related people getting together to make a decision, Louisville hired Ron Cooper as a football coach. So let that be a warning to you. Who's not hot at the University of Louisville is a basketball player, Monique Reed, who had a disappointing close to her season. Howie?
That's exactly right. Louisville makes the Sweet 16. They've got a great opportunity. They're playing an 11 seed, granted on their home floor, but they lose their best player within the first minute. Monique Reed, actually in warm-ups, Monique Reed pulled a groin muscle in warm-ups. How do you do that? You pulled it in a groin muscle in warm-ups and then couldn't play but about 2 minutes the entire game. She averages 16 points a game. She's Louisville's leading rebounder. She couldn't play the entire game, and Louisville loses to Gonzaga. That's not the only reason that Louisville lost, but, boy, that's a big one.
Well, the buzz at the University of Kentucky is the possibility of upstaging a trip to the Final Four, but the rapper Jay-Z just about did that as the Cats got off the floor in Newark. There they saw the rap icon greeting them as they came off the court. It was quite a weekend for the Wildcats, beating North Carolina, beating Ohio State, and meeting Jay-Z.
Jay-Z, I mean, one of the best rappers, the best rapper, and him just to being here just adds a cherry on top of the ice cream. So, I mean, it was great. So he was out in the hallway. Josh said, "That's Jay-Z." Gave him a handshake. I said, "Oh, let me get one too." So they really said congratulations. He was happy for us. And he was just proud that we did it as a team. You never know who's a Kentucky fan. So, I mean, I was just happy to meet him and take a picture.
And that absolutely made the kids say, can you imagine you've won that regional, you're on the way to the Final Four, you get the trophy, you cut down the nets, and you're walking down the hallway to go back in the locker room. It's like, wait a minute, is that who I think that is? It did. It made their night. They were all on cloud nine over that.
I think I'd been more excited if his wife Beyonce had been there because I have no idea what Jay-Z is or does.
Jones was Beyonce with him. He said, no, I'd have got in trouble.
Well, the buzz at the University of Louisville is about the Card coach being on the road to the Final Four. He just didn't take his team with him. Rick, of course, doing the studio work for CBS and ESPN. Of course, Rick's one shining moment this year came when he practically guaranteed a Notre Dame win over Florida State.
Listen, the Big East was just overrated, and after Notre Dame lose tonight, it's just going to be another feather in my cap.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Notre Dame will not lose tonight.
And Notre Dame lost that night. Notre Dame, like all the other Big East teams, or most of the other Big East teams, had a very disappointing performance. It was not a disappointing performance for Pitino on television. He was on a lot. He was on for several hours on TBS and CBS. He was also on ESPN. We saw him on the set of SportsCenter. He got a lot of FaceTime over the last week, and it brought up an interesting debate on Louisville's boards. You know, should he be there? Should he not be there? I think Louisville fans were expecting him to be, sitting in a dark room moping for the last 2 weeks, and that's just not how he coped. He went out there and got on television, got the program's name back out there, and that's the better reaction than sitting in the dark and crying for 2 weeks.
We come back on the Red and Blue Review. We'll tell you why Cal is smooching on one of his cats as we head to the break. Darrell will tell us how to get a copy of the Cat's Paws. DB?
Actually, Howie was the one in the corner in the dark room crying for 2 weeks.
That is true.
Huge issue this week, celebrating the Final Four trip and obviously working on an even bigger issue for this week with the games from Houston. Liftoff is appropriate since the Final Four is in Houston, and Houston, there is no problem here. 800-641-3302.
I believe in my team. I really like my team. No disrespect for any other team in the country. I'll take my team. And so.
And Cal has taken that team all the way back to Houston for their first Final Four in about 13 years. Welcome back to the Red and Blue Review. The guys are going to be talking about really the storylines we're going to be following this week in Houston. So let's jump right into our Game Time storylines. Game Time storyline number one. Does this prove that Cal's way of recruiting is right after all? Now, obviously, Cal's been criticized a lot for going after those one-and-done players, but you got to admit, this worked to get Kentucky back to the Final Four.
Because we lost 5 first-round draft picks, and everybody wants to say you can't win with young players. And I say if it's experience or talent, and I have a choice, I'm taking talent. And we'll figure out how to make them play together, how to get them to defend, how to increase their toughness, how they have to play to win ball games. I'll deal with that. Now, if they're talented and experienced, you don't lose any games.
It's an interesting strategy or mindset, the way he handles it. I don't know if there is a right or wrong, but that is absolutely Calipari's way of doing it. I do think from his own personal satisfaction, he has got to love being able to take a group that is very selfish and kind of clueless, and they're all thrown together, and just the chore and the job that it takes the entire season to break it all down, to build it back up the way it needs to be, and then to get to a Final Four. Should have been in the Final Four last year. They are there this year. They very well may be next year. So you can't argue with the results. It's just an interesting way to do it, and it kind of proves to the world I'm the best recruiter out there, and this is what I'll do with them once I get them. I can do more than recruit.
You know, I missed it when he recruited Darius Miller and DeAndre Liggins and Josh Harrelson. I tell you, what this is proof of is that actually Cal can coach. It's not an endorsement of his recruiting strategy. I think last year saw that was a failure there. And I think long term it's going to be very difficult to win with one-and-dones every year or first-year players every year. I think what this year proves, though, is that he can take less talented players like Liggins and Harrelson and make them into tremendous team players. This team has surprised me all season, and frankly, Cal's ability to coach has surprised me all season.
Oh, that's a great point, and the biggest challenge that Cal will face all season comes up this weekend because Game Time storyline number 2 is stopping Kemba Walker. Jim Calhoun, the coach of UConn, says that Walker really developed into a great player by going against former UK star and current NBA star Rajon Rondo.
Ray Allen, who spends a lot of time during the summer up at campus, was telling me that Rondo said the quickest guy he's ever played against is this kid Kemba Walker from your school. And when they tried to press Kemba, they couldn't. And he stayed at school, went 2 things with the select team against the national team, took 18 hours of academic work, because he's only 15 hours away from graduations in 3 years, and literally shot the ball 3 to 4 hours every single day, because he was not a jump shooter last year. Obviously, he's one of those today.
Yeah, Kemba Walker is so good, and we got to see up close and personal in Maui. He just ate UK alive, and Garry and Howie have been at the Final Four before. You know how Calipari will have his official press conference, and if you're lucky, you catch him in the hallway, and there's just a big mass of people around him, and that's where you get just really open and non-rehearsed remarks. And one of them was, "Hey, Coach, DeAndre Liggins has been saying all year he wants another shot at Kemba," and John's like, "I don't want another shot at Kemba. I'm not looking forward to that." You see what he did to us the first time around?
Yeah, nobody wants another shot at Kemba, not even Louisville. Louisville had a 2-1 record against him, but he's just so good. He's so fast, so quick. And I tell you, hopefully UK doesn't run into the same problem that Louisville had where, Kemba works the officials early on in the game and gets Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant kind of calls the rest of the game. Because if that happens, every time DeAndre Liggins puts his hand on him, it's going to be a foul call. And if that happens, you can't defend him. I mean, frankly, there's no good way to defend him anyway, but if they start calling any kind of hand check or any kind of touch on him, it's impossible. And he's just that good.
Game Time storyline number 3 for the semifinal between Kentucky and UConn is Brandon Knight and the big shots he's been making here in the postseason. Now, UConn doesn't have to be afraid of the dark, but if this game is close, they may want to fear the night because Brandon Knight now is what he used to be in the driveway, which is pretending he's somebody else making the game-winning shots.
Yeah. I think every kid does that when they're growing up outside, shooting around, just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, shoot it, and try to make it. And then when you make it, go inside, chill. Any kind of shot, not layups. Normally a jump shot, step back jump shot where you're holding your follow through or something like that.
mean, how fascinating is this game going to be if it comes down to possession by possession within the final 90 seconds? As I said here last week, and I picked UConn to be in the Final Four. My reason was they're going to be close games, and if there's close games, I want the ball in the hands of Kimball Walker. Well, so Brandon Knight's proven that way as well, so this could make for a fantastic ending to that game Saturday night, because Brandon, and to me, one of the more fascinating explanations of it from Calipari on why is he so good at making the last-second shot is because he's not afraid to miss the last-second shot. You miss it, you go on to the next one.
Game time storyline number 4 is Cal and the Kiss. Coach was so happy with the play of DeAndre Liggins at the end of that North Carolina game. As DeAndre came off toward the end of the game, Coach actually planted a smooch on the forehead of DeAndre Liggins, which led to the most awkward post-game question in NCAA history.
DeAndre, what was your reaction to Coach kissing you there?
He didn't kiss me back, I can tell you that.
Because we still had a game to play, so the game wasn't over. So it just showed I love him as a coach. He defined my game greatly. He made me the player I'm as now, and I respect him, and I love him to death.
John Calipari has rescued DeAndre Liggins' NBA career. There's no doubt about it. I mean, when John was hired, he was told by a lot of people, get rid of DeAndre. He's bad news. He's a troublemaker. Get rid of him. And John said he watched him a little bit and said, I think I'll take a chance on him, and look at where DeAndre is now because one person had faith in him that he could do it. And if you knew DeAndre's background and the tough childhood and his brother being shot in the back when he was in middle school and just really tough, and for him to trust no one to the point now where he trusts his head coach implicitly is quite a story.
It was a special moment between the coach and player, and that's I hate to say it because I really dislike DeAndre Liggins, but that's kind of what college basketball is about. I think of it the same way as I did the Bob Huggins thing when his player got hurt last year. Everyone thought of Bob Huggins as this guy with no heart. He's an angry old curmudgeon, and to see him over top of his player, weeping with his player because he's hurt, it was that same kind of humanizing moment for John Calipari, and frankly, I don't like it. I don't want to see it again. I don't want to like the guy. Stop doing that kind of stuff.
Well, Cal has just jumped into the front seat right beside Rick Pitino in the NCAA record book. We'll tell you about that after Howie tells us about this, how to get a subscription to the Louisville Sports Report. Howie?
You got it. We've got a lot in this week's issue. We're not going to the Final Four. You're not going to see that in there. But we've got a ton of spring football. Football is in full swing. We've got the 3 quarterbacks on there. We've also got baseball and softball and a lot of basketball and football recruiting news. 502-636-4330.
Time to check out what's new, what's next, and what's nuts here on Planet Red and Planet Blue. And what's new at the University of Kentucky is Josh Harrelson. He ended the regular season as the leading offensive rebounder in the SEC. Now he's become an offensive threat in the NCAA tournament.
If somebody's playing me too tight and I see a lane, I just try to drive it and get around them. And that helps out for my teammates because they don't play me as tight. And it's easier passes because they won't come and guard me as tight. But it's totally different, something I would have never thought I'd be able to do. But, we do a lot of stuff like that. And when I work out with Kenny Payne before practice and stuff, we work on a lot of taking people off the dribble and going through bumps. And we also do it in practice with the bigs. So, that's just something we've been working on, and I'm getting more confident doing it.
Yeah, the only thing I would tag on to that is Enes Kanter as well. He's practiced against Enes Kanter every day and gives a ton of credit for how he's developed by having to go against probably the best big man in the country we've never seen play college basketball this year. He gets to see him every day in practice, and Enes is so good. He wears Josh out. Josh will get better, or he is not going to be able to do anything. He's learned how to hold his own against him, and it showed because he held his own against Sullinger and then against Zeller this weekend.
What's next is Cal's legacy as he joins Rick Pitino as the only 2 coaches to lead 3 different schools now to the Final Four.
I'm young enough that I'm not worried about legacy. I'm trying to win one more game. But I would tell you, I hope that people look and say, boy, he does a good job with his kids, and they get better, and they play, and they go on to good careers, whether it's basketball or business or education, whatever it is, he prepares them for life after basketball. I hope that would be what it is. And if I'm lucky enough to do more on the basketball court, fine. If I don't win another game on the basketball court, that would be fine too. Now, I want to win. I'm not going to sit here and underestimate or tell you that that's not important to me, but it is. But it's not more important than what's happening for these young people.
It's probably the last.
Of course he wants to win. There's no doubt about that. But look at the start of the season, Josh Harrelson, DeAndre Liggins, Darius Miller. What kind of future did they have in basketball? None. Now look what kind of future they might have. That's the dramatic turnaround.
I will buy dinner for the first writer who asks him about his first trip to the Final Four. I'm serious. I will buy dinner. Part of his legacy is always going to be those other 2 Final Fours, but this is a big notch in his cap. I mean, a big feather in his cap. This is a remarkable season.
And what's nuts is tournament seeding and snowing as it relates to one of our sponsors and golf. You see, what's nuts is snow on the ground in March. That's what junior golfers from all across Kentucky had to deal with this past weekend as they competed in the Kia Match Play Championship. How about this for March Madness? Kids playing golf with snow on the ground. Sleet, snow, freezing winds, and the Seneca Golf Course challenged the best junior golfers in Kentucky during the 2-week run of the Kia Match Play Championship. But unlike the NCAA basketball tournament, a few of the top seeds did make it through. Number 1 seeded Preston French of Lexington won the boys championship. 7th seeded Taylor Thompson of Anchorage finished 2nd. Top seeded Garry Gupton of Louisville defended the 13-14-year-old title he won last year. Owensboro's John Augenstein, the 2 seed, was the runner-up. From there, it was upset city. The 3 seed, Katie Page from Louisville, secured the girls championship. Lexington's Kevin Klein, the 3 seed, captured the 15-16-year-old crown. Another 3 seed from Lexington, Trey Cox, won the 17-18-year-old division. And 5th seeded C.J. Jones from Bowling Green shocked the 11 and 12-year-olds at the Kia Match Play Championships. It was a frigid weekend out there. As a parent, I can tell you, that was some cold golf. We thank the guys at the Kia store for sponsoring that tournament and our show and all of our sponsors here on the Red and Blue Review. The Red and Blue Review is presented by the Winton Law Group and by the Kia store and by the Ford store, the Bachman Auto Group, Home Run Burgers and Fries, Sam Swope, and by SWAT Team Pest Control.